I knew he never liked me, but I didn't expect him to say it in front of everyone, standing there with a champagne flute in his hand like he was delivering a heartfelt toast instead of a slap to the face. We were gathered at my parents' house in Charleston, South Carolina. Long wooden table, dimmed lights, wine glasses catching reflections like broken glass. My mom had spent 3 days preparing the meal. Pot roast, scalloped potatoes, her signature honey-glazed carrots. The entire family was there: my sister Allison, her husband Mark, their 2 overly polite kids, Uncle Rick and Joe, and of course him, my cousin David. David was always the golden boy, born 2 years before me, but apparently decades wiser. In the eyes of my parents, he worked in finance in New York, wore watches that cost more than my rent, and always managed to turn the conversation back to himself. Still, I never thought he'd go as far as calling me out, especially not like that. We were halfway through dinner. I was picking at my plate, too anxious to eat much. The tension had been building from the moment I arrived. David made a snide comment when I walked in, something about how surprised he was to see I still lived in Pittsburgh. Everyone laughed, including my father. I ignored it, thinking I could get through one meal. Then he stood up, tapping his glass with a spoon. My mom smiled, expecting a sweet toast, something about family and gratitude. But David's smile was different. It was the kind you wear when you know you're about to hurt someone and you've already decided it's worth it. I just want to say how grateful I am to be here, he began, his voice rich and performative. Family means everything, especially when you consider how much effort it takes to keep it intact. His eyes glanced at me briefly. We all play our roles. Some of us succeed. Some were just a family mistake. A few seconds passed before the words sank in. My mother gasped quietly. My father blinked like he misheard, but I knew exactly what he said. He was talking about me. I looked around the table, waiting for someone to say something. Anyone? And no one did. I pushed my chair back slowly. The legs dragged against the floor, loud in the silence. I stood up, my heart beating so hard I thought it might knock over my wine glass. David kept smiling. My sister avoided my eyes. My father just took another sip of wine. Without a word, I walked out, through the dining room, past the hallway lined with photos of David's achievements, his graduation, his company award ceremony, his face plastered on some Forbes article. Not a single photo of me. I grabbed my coat from the entryway, my hands shaking as I pulled it on. The air outside was crisp, just starting to bite the way November does in the South when the humidity finally dies. I didn't look back. I walked down the long stone path that led to the driveway and got in my car, locking the doors even though I knew no one would follow. I just sat there for a few minutes, staring at the steering wheel, trying to breathe. My stomach felt like it had turned inside out. I should have yelled, should have thrown my drink in his face or flipped the table. But all I did was walk away, like I always did. I drove back to my hotel in silence. The radio was off, the roads empty. Every red light gave me time to replay the scene over and over. I kept hearing those words, the family mistake. The way he said it, so casual, like I was nothing more than an embarrassing anecdote. I didn't cry until I got to my room. I locked the door, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the bed, still in my coat. That's when the sobs came, loud and raw, like something had broken loose inside me after years of being held in place. I cried for all the times I tried to earn their approval, for every holiday I forced myself to come home, for every photo I took where I smiled like I belonged. I woke up the next morning with a headache and swollen eyes. The sunlight creeping through the curtains made everything feel worse, like the day didn't care that my world had cracked open. I checked my phone. Nothing. No texts. No missed calls. Not even from my mom. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling. Then I sat up and opened my messages. I typed out a text to my mom. I'm okay. I won't be coming back for the rest of the weekend. But I didn't send it. I deleted it and tossed the phone on the floor. By noon, I was driving out of Charleston. I took the long route, avoiding the highway, stopping at random diners and gas stations just to stay in motion. At one point, I pulled into an old bookstore. Off the road, just to sit among strangers and pretend I was someone else. It wasn't until I was 3 hours out, somewhere near Augusta, Georgia, that my phone finally rang. It was my sister. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the green button, but I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I knew what she was going to say. That David didn't mean it, that I was overreacting, that this was just family being family, but I wasn't going to let them spin it this time. Not again. He said it, and they all heard it, and no one said a word. So no, I wasn't going to answer. Not this time. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to convince myself I was okay, that walking out had been the right move. But that phrase kept looping in my head like a broken record. The family mistake. I could still see the way David tilted his glass like he was offering a toast to my failure. And worse, the silence that followed. That silence was the part that cut deepest. I stopped in a small town in Georgia called Waynesboro, not because I planned it, but because I needed gas and my eyes were starting to blur from exhaustion. I pulled into a rundown motel with a flickering vacancy sign, paid cash for a single night, and dragged myself to a room that smelled like old cigarettes and forgotten years. I stared at the ceiling again, like I had the night before. But this time I wasn't crying. I was numb, frozen in place. I didn't even take my shoes off. I just lay there, fully dressed, hands crossed over my stomach like I was preparing for burial. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. There were 2 texts from Allison. "Can we talk?" You left everyone stunned. It wasn't okay what he said, but even that second message felt empty. No apology, no taking sides. Just a vague acknowledgement that something wrong had happened, but not wrong enough to do anything about it. I typed back, "What exactly are you looking for me to say?" and set the phone down. 5 minutes later she replied, "Mom's been crying." She didn't know David was going to say that. I stared at that message for a long time. I could picture my mom, fussing over dishes in the kitchen while pretending not to be crying, asking herself why I walked out like I'd overreacted. That's what they all do. Make me feel like I'm the storm even when I'm the one trying to keep the damn roof from collapsing. I didn't respond. Instead, I got back in the car and drove west. I passed through forests and empty fields, through towns so small they barely had streetlights. I wasn't running away exactly. I just couldn't go back. Not yet. Around sunset, I stopped at a diner with a glowing red sign that said Grace's Place. It was almost empty inside. Just a couple of old men at the counter and a waitress who looked like she'd been there for decades. She poured me coffee without asking and slid a menu in front of me. "Rough day?" she asked without even looking up. I nodded. "Family?" I looked at her, startled. She finally made eye contact, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. Only thing that messes people up bad enough to show in their face is family. I let out a short laugh that came out more like a breath. "Something like that," I said. I ended up telling her everything. I don't know why. Maybe because she was a stranger and I knew I'd never see her again. Maybe because she didn't ask questions or interrupt or try to fix it. She just listened while I ate pancakes and sipped coffee. And when I was done, she refilled my cup and said, "People like your cousin thrive on silence. You did the right thing. Walking out doesn't make you weak. Staying would have." I nodded. And for the first time since that dinner, I believed it. I spent 2 more nights in random places, never staying anywhere more than a day. I ignored more texts. A couple came from my mom, short ones. "Are you safe? We miss you. Please come back." But they never said what I needed them to say. No one said, "We're sorry." No one said, "You didn't deserve that." Eventually, I drove back to Pittsburgh. My apartment was exactly how I'd left it. Quiet. Still. My plants were mostly dead, and the fridge had started to smell. But it was my space, my mess, my life. I unpacked slowly. Not because I had a lot to put away, but because I wasn't sure what to do next. I sat on the couch with the lights off, letting the hum of the city outside remind me I was somewhere that didn't try to rewrite my worth with every breath I took. A week passed before my mom called. Not texted, called. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Her voice was soft, almost scared. "Hi, sweetheart." I didn't respond. I just wanted to hear your voice," she continued. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about what David said." I stayed quiet. I didn't say anything that night because I froze. "I should have stood up for you. I know that. I'm sorry." That made something inside me shift. I wasn't ready to forgive, but at least someone finally said it. "Why does he hate me so much?" I asked, my voice cracking. She hesitated. "He's jealous, you know. You may not see it, but you've got something he doesn't. You're not fake. You don't have to perform for people to be liked." I almost laughed. "Well, apparently I'm still the family mistake." "No, you're not," she said, firm for once. "You never were. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it was something." That night I slept better, not because everything was fine, but because for the first time, I stopped believing that their silence defined me. They let him speak. They let him call me the mistake. But I finally realized something. His words didn't have power because they were true. They had power because I let them sit in me like a weight. Now I was done carrying it, and I wasn't walking back into their silence, not without a voice of my own. It took me 2 months to agree to visit again. My mom kept calling, sometimes just to say she missed me, other times to gently ask if I'd consider coming home for Christmas. I didn't say yes or no, I just kept living, slowly, quietly, building my days again. I got back into my work, focused on my small projects, and took walks in the evenings when the city calmed down and the wind made me feel something close to whole. I stopped answering texts from Allison. I didn't block her. I just didn't have anything left to say. Whatever she thought she was doing by reaching out, it wasn't enough. She was there that night. She could have stopped him too. Instead, she looked away, but I didn't want to hold on to the anger forever. That wasn't strength. That was just poison dressed up as armor. When Christmas came around, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the card my mom had sent. It wasn't fancy, just a photo of her and my dad in front of their tree. The note inside was short. "We'd love to see you. No pressure. Just love." And for some reason, that was what did it. I packed a small bag, didn't overthink it, and got in my car. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I just drove down I-79, then merged east toward Charleston. The roads were icy, the sky gray with that heavy kind of winter air that makes everything feel suspended. I pulled into their driveway around 6 in the evening on Christmas Eve. The lights were on inside, soft yellow glowing from the windows, wreaths hung on the porch. I sat in the car for a full 10 minutes before I stepped out. I didn't knock. I just walked in. My mom turned from the kitchen sink when she heard the door. Her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. She didn't rush toward me. She just stood there, tears welling up, and whispered, "You came." I nodded, unsure if I'd made a mistake. My dad stepped in from the hallway, surprised but not shocked. He looked older, or maybe I just hadn't really looked at him in a long time. He gave me a simple nod, like he was afraid anything more would push me away again. "I made your favorite," my mom said softly, like that was a peace offering she hoped I'd accept. I took off my coat, hung it on the same hook I used as a kid, and walked into the kitchen. Everything smelled familiar. Cinnamon, roasted meat, sugar cookies. Like nothing had changed. But everything had. Dinner was quiet. Just the three of us. No David. No Allison. Just my parents and me. Like we'd rewound the clock to a version of our family that still had some kind of rhythm. After we ate, my mom brought out a small gift box and slid it across the table. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a framed photo of me from high school graduation. I didn't even remember them taking it. I was standing next to my dad, beaming in my cap and gown. "I found it a few weeks ago," she said. I didn't. No, we still had it. It was buried in one of the old boxes in the attic. I didn't know what to say. For years, I felt like I'd been erased, that every photo on their walls had skipped over my existence. But here it was, proof that I had been seen once. That night, I stayed in my old room. It hadn't changed much. The posters were gone, replaced with generic beach paintings, but the bed still creaked the same way when I sat down. I lay there staring at the ceiling again, not out of pain, but out of reflection. I kept thinking about how different things felt now. Not perfect, not resolved, Just real. The next morning, the doorbell rang around 10. I heard my dad answer it. I couldn't hear the full conversation, just bits and pieces. Then I heard my mom's voice rise a little, sharp in a way that made me sit up. When I stepped into the hallway, David was standing there. He looked exactly the same. Crisp jacket, designer shoes, hair perfect, but his eyes faltered when he saw me. I froze. "I didn't know you'd be here," he said, voice tighter than usual. My mom stood between us, arms crossed. "She's here because we asked her. If you're here to cause more damage, turn around." "I'm not," he said, holding up his hands. "I came to talk." I didn't move. I didn't invite him in. I just waited. He looked at me, eyes shifting. "I shouldn't have said what I said," he began. "At the dinner, I was angry. You've always had this way of making me feel like I wasn't enough, even though everyone always says I'm the successful one." I blinked. "That wasn't an apology. That was projection. You're not the mistake," he added, softer. "I was just trying to feel better about my own shit. And I used you to do it." Silence stretched between us. The old me might have said it's okay just to keep the peace, but I wasn't that version anymore. "I'm not responsible for your insecurities," I said. "What you said hurt. What they didn't say hurt more. But I'm done trying to fit into this family's idea of worth." He nodded, almost like he'd expected that. Then, to my surprise, he turned to leave without pushing back. After the door closed, my mom exhaled hard. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, for the first time in a long while. Later that day, she asked if I wanted to help her hang new photos in the hallway. I said yes, and when we picked frames, she handed me a small stack of pictures she'd set aside, ones I hadn't seen in years. Me playing piano, me on my first bike, me at age 5 with my face covered in birthday cake. As we hung them side by side, I realized something simple but powerful. I was never the mistake. I was just the one who finally decided not to accept silence as love. And that made all the difference.